Hey guys, Vincent here. This is a quick video to help you get started with Floorwork. In this video, we will be covering a few foundation moves, transitions between one and another, how to put them together, how to piece the puzzle together, but more importantly, the concepts, the underlying concepts that will help you get better at moving on the floor in a matter of minutes. Because you see, the problem with the movement and the dance classes, in my opinion, is that when you learn sequences, you actually don't really learn efficiently how to move. It would be the same thing as you going to Japan and not knowing how to speak Japanese. And you learn it on the Lonely Planet Guide. And then you get there and you just repeat the phrases you've learned, but you have no clue how to create your own sentences. Well, the logic is the same here. I don't want you to repeat the sentences I'm teaching you. I want you to be able to create your own sentences to understand the grammar behind flow work.
Bij.
B.
Bij.
B.
A.
Hamburger.
Hamburger.
If you're a complete beginner, this is a video for you. We're going to be talking about different moves, learn how to put them together, but more importantly, see what are the underlying concepts at play when we work on the floor. And this will allow us to get better at moving more flowy in a matter of minutes. If you're a bit more advanced, I would suggest you go to my YouTube channel and check all the tutorials there. Some of them are a bit more spicy and would be more relevant for you. And check my website where you will find more details about my online courses and my online coaching. Before we start our session, make sure you have socks, long pants, long sleeves, and ideally a pair of knee pads to protect the knees. This is going to allow you to work smoother on the floor and limit the amount of friction between the skin and the floor. Today, we're going to see 4 different movements. The Foetus Roll, the side roll, the belly roll, and the S-roll A and its contemporary dance variation. So the Foetus Roll is one of the first movements to be learned in floor work. It allows us to go from a sitting position to lying down on the floor. The first thing to do is to identify the landing pads we have to transition from one position to the other. More specifically, you want to be using your hand first and then bend the elbow to bring it on the floor before the shoulder hits the floor. Once the shoulder is softly resting against the floor, you can set yourself in that fetus position, hence the name Foetus Roll. Although very simple, this movement is actually quite technical. And the first caveat to be avoiding is to bring our hand too far from the hips. So make sure this first hand lands close to the hips to make the way down as efficient as possible. Our mission then is to make the whole motion as flowy as possible. And for this, here come a couple of pointers. First, you want to free that neck. There is always too much tension on the neck in every Instagram video I'm watching. So make sure that the neck actually has a life of its own. To make the way down even more efficient, we're going to be extending that non-support arm on the side, as if you were trying to reach for something with your hand. This will allow you to bring the center of mass closer to the floor in a way more efficient way. From the fetus position, we're going to roll on our back, and from there drop the knees to the other side to be pushing ourselves back up. So at the beginning of this Foetus Roll, we should start in a 90-90 with our knees facing one side and end up in a 90-90 with our knees facing the other side, which means the pelvis stays facing the same wall for the whole movement. When we learn a movement, a good idea is to start looking for loops as soon as possible. And here it's quite easy to do it. We just need to be opening the legs in a straddle seated position at the end of this Foetus Roll to be continuously going clockwise or counterclockwise. This next move is super easy, so let's get straight to it. Lying down on your back, your mission is to roll on the side all the way until you get to your belly, and to keep doing it as long as you need. Now the first thing to be doing for this to become a bit more technical is to segregate the upper body from the lower body. So you want to be leading with either of them, extending to the side with the opposite arm or the opposite leg to generate a torque and roll from the back to the belly and the belly to the back. Once you got that, your mission is going to be sliding your hands and your feet as much as possible. And that's a fundamental concept in Floorwork, which we're going to dive into right now. So this is the first hack for today to make you more flowy quicker. When we begin in Floorwork, we tend to lift our arms and our legs around and put them back on the floor for no reason. This is what I call in my classes burning calories for nothing. Now, what I want you to do is become more conscious, become more aware of that, so that you keep your limbs sliding on the floor unless you really need to pick them up to create momentum or to change levels. And if you don't trust me, that's fine, but just look at the difference in terms of how flowy I look between example A and example B. So first rule, don't burn your calories for nothing. Reorganize the structure around the supports that you've chosen and try to keep your hands and your feet sliding at the very least as much as possible. Okay, back to our side roll. Once we understood that we could be sliding our feet and our hands, we can play with the position of the arms, which can go overhead, under the hips, or sideways, pushing close to the chest away from the floor. With the under hip motion, be careful. The arm that's traveling under the hip shouldn't stop as you perform the motion. So you have to anticipate and push on both feet and the shoulder to create the space for this to happen without having to stop and show the word that you're struggling. And look at this, we can already bring these two movements together, starting in the 1990, lowering ourselves down to find ourselves in this fetus position, and from there, roll to our back, and from there, perform a side roll until we find ourselves on our back, able to come back up in a 1990 position. Chances are, as we start adding up movements together, the quality with which we move starts to deteriorate. So your mission here is to bring your attention to the quality with which you're moving and to keep sliding them feet and to keep being efficient as you move. Right, let's see now the belly roll. Once again, we're gonna start and finish in that 1990 position. This time, we're gonna be going towards the side that our knees are facing. So knees facing the left, I bring my hands to the left, lower my body to the floor, bring my chest to the floor, bring both hips to the floor, and then find my way up. Once again, and you can see a pattern here, we want to be segregating upper body from lower body. On the way down, the upper body is leading, which means we're creating the torque by reaching with our arms, by reaching with our torso, and then the lower body follows. On the way up, on the other hand, we set the legs in the 1990 position and then we push on both arms to be finishing in that sitting position. Once again, once you've understood the gist of this motion, the idea is to release every tension that's not required. And that starts with us freeing the neck. And time now, obviously, to apply all the wisdom you've been learning so far, which means in this movement again, sliding the hands and the feet as much as possible. And in this case, it means clearly lifting the feet off the floor or clearly letting them slide on the floor, but no more of this half-ass up and down foot position. Life just got very exciting because now we can bring together the fetus roll and the belly roll. You will notice that both of them start and finish in the 1990. So your mission is going to be creating one continuous flow between one movement and the other without stopping in between. In that regard, and to make our life a bit easier, we're going to transition into a seated straddle position at the end of the belly roll and the 1990 back roll in order for us to create a loop. For this to happen, you may want to be swinging your arms a bit more as you transition from the 1990 into the belly roll and from your back all the way up to the 1990. And now to merge the different combinations we've been seeing so far, we can try to bring back to back this fetus roll, a side roll, and a belly roll. With the different arm placement we've seen for the side roll, and the option to open in a seated straddle or to keep the 1990 as we come back out of the belly roll or the fetus roll, we already have loads of options to be playing with. Okay, hack number 2 to get better at moving faster. You want to think about pouring the weight from one limb to the other. Because right now, chances are, as a beginner, you're moving like a toddler who's trying to learn to walk. And this analogy means that for us to become more efficient and therefore more graceful at moving on the floor, we want to be able to touch the floor with our skin, with our support, with our limb, before pouring the weight into it. So I really need you to be making a clear choice at touching the floor first before you commit the weight on it. So from now on, we're going to try to avoid hitting the floor too hard. We really want to be just like the cat, gradually putting our hands down, gradually putting the shoulder down, gradually transferring the weight from one body part to the other. In other words, the more gradual you can be in the way you transfer the weight from one support to the other, from one body part to the other, the more efficient you become. Alright, time to see the first movement for today, which will have our ass off the floor. This is a rollé, so inspired from the word of capoeira. And the first thing we need to see is that it will allow us to actually transition from the floor to a higher ground. See, in the 1990, the back foot is gonna raise its heel so that you can sit your bum on it as you shoot the knee towards the floor. This should allow you to end up in that tripod position, which is going to be very important in floor work. In that position, you want to have the support hand on the same side as a slightly extended leg, which is on the opposite side from the heel you're sitting on. From that position, we're going to reach to the side with that opposite hand and align it on the floor with the first hand. As you extend the support leg and transfer the weight to the hands and the other foot, this should allow you to slide the back foot in alignment with the front foot as well. Halfway through this motion, the front foot, the one of the extended leg, becomes a pivot and will allow us to transition back into a 90-90 again. To do so, as you finish sliding the back leg, we're gonna release the first hand. Place the knee of the back leg on the floor and slide it between the support foot and the support arm to end up in a 90-90. Here again, once you understood the movement, you want to try to create a loop going from one S roll to the other without stopping. Now, let me stop you right there. You want to master these 4 movements first before you move on with that video, because now we're going to be addressing the more spicy variations, and there's no point in you doing that before you master the basics. Okay, let's see how we can move on from the normal side roll to this jumping variation. First, you want to remember that as we move from the back to the belly, the legs want to be leading the way. So you're going to place your legs first, bring the opposite leg to the side first to be able to push on both feet and the arms to push yourself up. At first, you want to place the knee of the leading leg down as you push yourself up to really understand the timing of this motion. As you practice this as much as possible, and as you gradually remove the knee from the floor, you want to feel that it's the momentum from the side roll that allows you to push yourself up, more so than you performing a normal push-up. In other words, the exertion you feel from this movement should be way less intense than what you would feel from a normal push-up. Now on the way down, same idea, you want to be as efficient as possible. This is not a push-up, so you want to drop the hip towards which you're traveling on the floor, bend that knee and bring the knee and the hip just like we bring the elbow and the hand and the shoulder when we're transitioning from a 90-90 to the ground, to make the transition to the ground as smooth as possible. If you don't overuse tension, if you let the momentum do its job, and if you place the hip properly, the whole body should be facing away from where you're going as you perform that roll. With proper form and momentum management, the push should be really easy. 2 things to be aiming for. 1, you want to be pushing on both feet and both hands as much as possible at the same time. And 2, you want to be landing on them 4 at the same time as well. Once you understood the S-Roll, the contemporary version of it, in which we swing the leg more in the air, and more importantly with which we keep straight back, is actually quite easy. So practice this S-Roll with which you're gonna bring the back leg higher in the air. You can bend that leg to make it easier, you can point that foot to make it more aesthetic, and look backwards, making sure your spine is as straight as possible, thinking of the tabletop position. As you get more comfortable, you want to relax both the neck and the hip of the swinging legs so that the knee and the entire leg can move in a more circular motion. If you want to make this extra contemporary, you can add a head spin in the mix. If you're more a mover than a dancer, you might disregard that, but I would invite you to try it nonetheless because the body isolation this requires is actually quite useful. And you got the idea already from this long tutorial. Once you understand one movement, you want to integrate it with other movements so that you're able to bridge them together and to use them without thinking too much when you improvise. A good start is for us to bring together the 90-90 back roll and the S-Roll and really understand that we can push ourselves from a 90-90 into the tripod position whenever we want to go higher off the floor. So your priority here is to make the transition as smooth as possible because the 2 other movements should be quite simple by now. And for that, we're gonna need to anticipate what's coming. So extend that upper leg as you push yourself back up from a 90-90 already to be ready to transition into your S roll A and sit your ass on that back heel. And once again, to make sure you're not learning stupid sentences in Japanese that you won't be able to reuse, let's try to create a loop by adding into the equation a belly roll. Exact same idea here because we end up in the exact same 90-90 as with the Foetus Roll. You want to be extending that upper leg in anticipation for the S roll A as you push yourself back up. One last piece of advice for the road: try not to sacrifice the quality of your landing with the height. So, no matter how high you swing that leg in the contemporary version of the S roll A, the foot should land gracefully and very gradually on the floor. Alright guys, that's it for today. We have now 4 different movements to be playing with, which gives us an infinite number of possibilities to be improvising with. Keep working on them. Drop me a comment below if you have any question. I'd be happy to get back to you with an answer. Make them your own. Once you get the gist of these movements, you can start infusing your own flavors to them. And hopefully I'll see you soon, either in person in the workshop or online. Until then, take care and keep caressing that floor.